So what I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, one of my favourite subjects, is about physical activity. And we all know the energy balance equation. We all know that physical activity is important. But what I want us to look at is the standard recommendations for physical activity for people, but also how that relates to weight management. So when we're looking at physical activity, it's important we think of it in its broadest sense. So we're looking at reducing sedentary behaviour. There's a huge number of health benefits for that. Increasing activities of daily living. So that's gardening, walking around the house, housework, just general activity. But also it might include structured exercise. And where you go with that is going to depend on the starting point from the person that you're working with. So let's have a look first at what the UK recommendations are. So most of the work you were doing with weight management will be in relation to adults. So we'll just focus a little bit on the adult recommendations, and that's age 19 to 64. So there are different guidance for different ages that you can look at. So if we're looking at promoting health, staying healthy, adults, you and me, should be trying to be active daily. And that should add up to at least 150 minutes of moderate aerobic activity every week. Cycling, brisk walking, for example, or swimming. But it could just be housework or something like that. It doesn't have to be structured exercise. So what we want to do is encourage people to get towards that, because the majority of people don't. And the number of people who are reaching those recommendations is quite low. So moderate activity is activity that gets you breathing a bit faster. Your heart rate is getting up, but you can still talk. If you're looking at vigorous activity, then you can do half as much, 75 minutes of vigorous aerobic activity every week. So that might be running, fast cycling, or playing squash or singles tennis. So something that's really getting your heart rate up. And when you're doing vigorous activity, you're unlikely to be able to have a conversation at the same time. So it's that much harder activity. But think of the people that you might be working with who are living with obesity and overweight. This may not be feasible for them, but the speed that they move because of extra weight may actually get their heart rate up quite quickly. So a healthy person who's used to activity may be able to run quite fast and still talk, but some of the people that we'll be working with who are perhaps less used to physical activity, who may be carrying more weight, living with more overweight, may be struggling with that. So it's not about a certain speed, it's about what it does to that particular person. And you can mix and match. So it might be that one day you're playing singles tennis, another day you're just walking. So working out which of those things are going on, and you can mix it up. There should also be strength exercises that work on all the major muscles, so legs, hips, your back, your stomach. So something like Pilates or yoga can be really important here for strengthening, but it could also be for some things. You could be doing some weights. It could be gym. But that's not going to work for everybody. So it's about finding strength exercises, even if it is lifting the shopping bags and using bicep curls for the shopping bags. It doesn't really matter, but it is about strength and using those muscles. And every time we use the muscles, we strengthen them. So those kinds of things need to be fitted in as well. And really importantly, we need to minimize the amount of time being sedentary. So if you're watching something on a TV channel that has adverts, getting up and moving every time the adverts are on would be an appropriate thing to do, to try not to be sitting for too long. lectures, very sedentary activities, television, computing, doing assignments can be a very sedentary activity. So we need to be very mindful of those things. So if you want to have a little look at the other age groups and guidelines for them, I've given you the link there, but there are also infographics you might want to download, which help you to remember more easily which recommendation works for which age group. So that was for the healthy population and what might be promoting health. But what about activity for weight management? And that's a different thing. It might start the same. So we want to find out how physically active that individual is and to encourage their level of physical activity to increase, because there are so many health benefits, physical and mental health benefits, to being physically active. So we want to encourage it, even though it may not be enough to burn up enough energy to change weight management, energy balance. It still has health benefits, so we want to be strongly encouraging that. So we're looking at least 30 minutes of moderate or greater intensity physical activity on 5 or more days a week. That's your starting point. To prevent obesity, we're going to have to look at more than that. That's 45 to 60 minutes of moderate intensity activity a day, particularly for someone who's not reducing their energy intake. Now, that's not going to be feasible for a lot of people. So it immediately begs the question of, physical activity on its own, is it going to lead to weight management? Highly unlikely, because of the volume of activity that is required. The amount is required is significant. So for those who have been obese and lost weight, this, of course, one of the most important issues is how to stop people putting weight back on. And this gets you really looking very strongly at, how much activity you actually need. So we're looking at an hour to an hour and a half, 60 to 90 minutes a day to try and help someone avoid regaining weight. That's incredibly difficult to fit in. So there's going to need to be maintained diet changes as well as physical activity. So we want to encourage people to build up to the recommended activity levels for weight management and setting clear goals. We'll look at goals much more closely later on in the course, but specific goals that are measurable, that people can tick the box to say, yes, I've done that today, or no, I haven't. The types of physical activity can really be incredibly variable. And I think this is one of the things where you need to get to know your patient and think about what is going to work for you. Is it going to be walking? Are you a keen gardener? Do you like your cycling? Do you like swimming? But can you do that every day? Can you work towards a certain number of steps? But remember that actually might not be at the right level. People can do steps, but do them very slowly, so they're not even at a moderate level. Some people with houses with stairs can use those. Some people might like to dance. What is going to work for that individual? What is something that they can enjoy? Something they used to do. There's a lot of activities for people, even like walking, football. Things have changed, so there's a lot more out there, but it also depends on where people live, on what's accessible to them, and also the cost of things. So it's about thinking through with them what is feasible, what can they fit in, is there something they can fit around their day already, and how they're going to manage to input that. So you need obviously to think about that person's current physical fitness and what ability they have. And that can really start at very low level. And you may be surprised at how little some people actually do. So if you're looking at counting steps, for example, and people decide to get a pedometer or a Fitbit or something like that, or if they carry their phone all the time, monitoring on their phone, some people may only do 2,000 or 3,000 steps a day. So getting steps up could be a really useful thing to do. but what are they capable of doing? Those goals may be walking to the next lamp post in their street and walking back. It might be taking the stairs more often. It might be walking to the next bus stop. They can be very, very small things, but you can do it. Certainly, I used to run some weight management groups, and that was one of the things that I really enjoyed, was seeing changes in physical activity. So I had one lady who went from doing 2,000 to 3,000 steps a day to doing 17,000 steps a day. And although she didn't lose much weight, her health overall was so improved, her well-being was so improved, and she was doing things that she would have asked someone else to do. Just get up and put the kettle on. Actually, I'll take the dog for a walk. I won't just let someone else do it. So there can be a range of things suiting to that individual, what works for them, what they're going to enjoy. Because if it's going to be useful, it's got to be sustained. So we need to encourage people to get up when they're watching TV, not spend hours and hours on a computer or phone playing video games. They need to get up and move and decrease that sedentary behaviour. So really think heavily about what that person can do, starting from what may seem a very low level, but gradually building it up so they can build strength, build confidence, and enjoy, hopefully, the activity that they're doing. So your goals might need to be really small to start with, and then we might be getting people to do 30 minutes of walking 5 times a week. So that's like the standard recommendations for physical activity. That might be their 150 minutes of moderate activity, and then gradually working it up. 10-minute chunks can be really helpful. So if you say to someone, right, you've got to walk for an hour, a lot of people can't do that. But they might be able to do 10-minute slots. And that can be really helpful to people. And actually may have extra benefits because it means they're getting their heart rate up more often and building strength. Definitely monitoring, there's huge evidence base for self-monitoring being really important in helping people to maintain changes in behaviour. So, and if people have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes, then aerobic activity and resistance training may also be really important. So lots of different things to think about. Most important thing, where is the person at this time? What can they begin to change? And physical activity needs to be there, even if it's not going to be enough to lead to weight loss. Because it's so helpful, so important for health. And that can be a really positive message, encouraging people to improve health, not focus just on what the scales say as far as kilograms. It can be really, really beneficial thing to do. What I'd also like you to think about is what factors that might make it difficult for people with obesity to undertake physical activity. And we'll come back to this in the session, but start thinking about logistics and the kind of things that get in the way of you doing physical activity, the kind of things that people around you, your family, your friends might find reasons not to be physically active. But think also of someone who's carrying excess weight, who's living with obesity, living with overweight. What else is there going to be that's going to impact on them? And hopefully we'll have time to discuss that in the session.